Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Rugby Scoop podcast, where we razzle, where we dazzle you with the finest rugby breakdown across the whole world. Of course, I'm not by myself. I'm joined by the usual crew. We've got the former blitzkrieg speedster, Vuyo Zanga, all the way in Russia. I'm joined by the weatherman, Jade Craig, all the way in Bloemfontein. Hugh will be joining us shortly. But Vickers, how things going? Understand that you are currently busy with the tournament at this point in time. And yeah, how's that going so far?
Yeah, no, all good. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is good. I'm actually not at tournament. It's busy with camp. So I've got 2 tournaments next week. So which means the next 2 Sundays for me will be tricky. Because obviously Sevens is played on a Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, 100%. But I'm sure we will find ways and means to wiggle our way like the way you used to back in your rugby days. Wiggle our way through and find a time that basically suits us best. But we've got one more announcement as well. A Rugby Scoop podcast is in collaboration with the best blended brown liquor in the world, apparently. Hey? Avante Brandy is one of our key collaborations that we are in part with, or that we are working with going forward, and very nice for them to obviously or for us actually to basically work with them, but more details to come from that particular collab. But yeah, news making headlines. There's plenty of news making headlines this week. South Africa will be supporting former French lock Abdel Benazi in the quest to take over Sir Bill Beaumont, who's currently the world rugby chairman at this point in time. The race is hitting up nicely there, as voting will take place on the 14th of November. I think there's 2 other candidates as well within that aspect. Former Wallabies and Brumbies open side flanker, who's currently part of World Rugby at this point. Brett Robinson is also a candidate for this role. And then there's a former Italian international, Andrea Rinaldo, is also a man that's also part of this particular role going forward. Sevens rugby has been exed from the Commonwealth Games. Vickers, that's quite massive in terms of the Seventh Circuit. Obviously, I think a lot of players maybe would be looking forward to earning a gold medal within the Commonwealth. How much of an impact do you think this is in terms of that's one competition less in rugby sevens?
Yeah, look, it's the same as World Cup. So it comes every 4 years. The last one we had, I think, was 2022, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's not axed as in it will never happen again. I think when I read the article, it said that just because Scotland was not meant to host the Commonwealth Games, so they almost like the second receiver of the tournament. So they were bailing out whoever was meant to host in the first one. So so now they decided to cut costs and help Scotland, obviously being able to host it, which is why cricket, soccer, I think a couple of team sports have been cut, and sevens, unfortunately, was one of them. So hopefully we will see it back in 2030. And obviously, it is always a nice tournament because it almost prepares you for Olympics, and you get to see your stars, your athlete stars that are around to compete for those medals. So it is very nice tournament. So I wouldn't really be happy to see that being cut.
Yeah, no, fair enough, and well explained there. We know that Clive Woodward has also come out in agreement with Rassie Erasmus. Basically, he was observing how English clubs are employing a lot of foreign players, which a lot of them are South African. He believes that obviously a lot of South African players that are currently playing in the Gallagher Premiership benefits South Africa more than it benefits England. And then Wayne Smith, former New Zealand coach and former women New Zealand rugby coach as well. He won a World Cup with the Black Ferns. He's also echoed Bill Bowman's words regarding the substitutions, that rugby has too many subs. I don't know where, I don't know what is the idea behind this whole aspect of not having too many rugby subs. Jade, I mean, regarding rugby substitutes, I think we're quite well balanced. I think a lot of teams probably didn't know how to utilize the substitutions before, or South Africa have come up with a better way of using substitutions, which obviously has been beneficial for the Springboks, and everyone else kind of is trying to keep up, but at the same time now they see it as a hindrance in terms of having too many substitutes. I mean, what do you think about this whole substitute debacle that we currently have in rugby?
Now, these guys, they just, afternoon, everybody. But these guys just, they keep on sucking up things just to get clicks on the internet. I mean, I have utmost respect for Wayne Smith. And I mean, I don't agree with what he said last week regarding the substitutes. I mean, yes, I mean, there is this phobia that we would go to, I mean, the way the NFL game is run now, where, you have different offenses and defenses, etc. So they're scared, we'll have that. But I mean, we're so far from that, guys. I think at the moment it's just to counter, the way the Boks did it. They elevated the game. I mean, New Zealand for years, when Wayne Smith was on the coaching staff there, they had that backline or the bench boost that they used. I mean, the last 20 minutes, how many times didn't they win the game because of their bench? And how to turn around, and come up with these statements, because the Boks has just elevated it further. I think it's, I don't agree fully with Wayne Smith there, the professor. So yeah, for me, Sabol, I mean, what he came out and said, that was really just a jab towards against the Boks, and what he said there, and then for Wayne Smith to come out and say the same this week, after he came out last year after the World Cup final and said, what he wants the Mauls to, not to be so big part of the game and to scrap Mauls, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, I think Wayne Smith and Bill, they got it wrong there. I think substitutions, especially the way they're promoting the game was ball in play. They're trying to make the game faster. Obviously, the fatigue aspect, they're looking at play safety and all of that stuff. So how can you say there's no substitutes? I mean, have less substitutes, not really going to work. So yeah, that's my 2 cents regarding this.
No, fair enough, fair enough. Yes, guys, not forgetting what we're going to be covering today. We've got the URC. We're going to break that down. A few games that need our attention. Stormers, Blue Bulls, obviously winning it at the death. We've got obviously the international squads were mentioned also this past week. I know Scotland have come out and named their squad. Ireland have come out and named their squad as well. We've got new captains in some of those teams or some of those countries as well, which is something to also just dive into. We've got the Allblacks versus Japan that we're also going to dissect in this particular conversation. But first things first, the URC. Vickers, Blue Bulls at the death, and Jake White coming out saying that you have to win those games at the death just like that in order to win championships. So he's won what now? 2 from 3 on the road. Do you think the Blue Bulls are a team we can see finishing top 4 this season?
Yeah, look, it's really tough to say. I mean, it's really tough to say at the moment, but I don't think it's about winning games like that to be able to win championships. I think the way I would put it is that you need to fight against all odds to try and get a result. And I think that's what they did in that game. They fought literally against all odds to get the result, and they did at the end, which is good for them. I think definitely is a team that could play in the playoffs, but I wouldn't call them just yet to be guaranteed a home quarter. I think they will probably have to fight for that home quarter. But I do definitely see them in the playoffs. I mean, they did well. I think they have a couple of good things that they've done, and I think they will lose obviously a couple of players now with the Boks, which will hinder their squad a little bit. But I still think they have good quality to be able to compete with the other teams as well.
Yeah, Jade, now since Hannekom has been called up into the Springbok setup, obviously we'll discuss that a bit later as well. Vuyo talks about missing Springboks. Have the Blue Bulls built a good enough squad now? Because, I mean, they've spent a lot of money in the past 2 to 3 seasons. Do you think they have the personnel to see them do well without their Springboks involved?
I think they do. I think they do have the personnel. I mean, their squad was disrupted the weekend. I honestly, when I saw all of the changes they made into their starting team and to their squad, I thought, Benetton really stands a good chance of winning here. I mean, they just beat the Sharks a few weeks ago, so their tails would be up. But I mean, the guys came in and they took the opportunity. They got an ugly win. I think they really came into life really only after the 63rd minute or so. That's when the Bulls kicked in. But I think they do have a squad. For me, it was just whether Jake White trusts them, and to throw them in at the deep end. But I mean, hopefully this was an eye-opener for him the weekend. And I mean, there's a few guys in the squad that, can get more game time and that he can trust at this level. So I think they do have a squad. It's just for me, the question was always whether Jake White trusts them,
Yeah, no, fair enough. But yeah, congratulations to the Blue Bulls on their victory away from home, because I think that's where you collect a lot of points. I think 95, 98% of the time they should be winning all their home games, maybe bar 1 or 2 strange results at home. But I don't think they're going to be playing Glasgow at home this in this regular season. But I'm not sure. I'll check that out. But I mean, Glasgow are looking quite prominent. Now moving to the Cape Town game between Stormers and Glasgow Warriors. Jade, Franco Smith, what is he on? What did you guys feed him in Bloemfontein? What is in the Bloemfontein water that's making the Glasgow Warriors as good as they are? Because Rassie Erasmus drank Bloemfontein water. He's won 2 back-to-back championships. Now looking at Franco Smith, he's gone to war. He's gone to Glasgow Warriors. He won last year. He's looking in good nick at this point in time. What is in the water in Bloemfontein? Wat is in die water?
It's the same thing that they put in their Van Brandy, bro. No, listen. I mean, Franco's always been a intelligent and a world-class coach. I would like to say he's a world-class coach with accolades that he achieved. He's got all that. He's got that magic touch at the moment. Everywhere he went, he sprinkled that magic touch. And I mean, there's one stuff. I mean, you just look at the Varsity Cup, and then you look at the Currie Cup for the Cheetahs, and then you look at what he done in Glasgow. So for me, he's always been. He's a world-class coach. I mean, I really, really rate him. And also the team that he built. I mean, this Glasgow team that he built. I mean, they all play to a plan. They understand their job. They understand what to do. They don't panic in situations when things don't go their way. They've got experienced players. They've got 1 or 2 world-class players in their team at the moment. I think Tuipulotu was one of them. And then number 8 as well is turning into be a world-class player at the moment. So for me, that's what they have at the moment. They've got a championship winning team. And I mean, I still fancy that they can do it again this year. If I go to tell you now, that's my pick to go back-to-back this year, then between them and Leinster. But I really think, and they also came up against a Stormers team that's, disjointed, not in form, relying on individual brilliance. They've been doing this for the past 18 months, really. So they really put Stormers to the sword. Well done to them. And they came to Africa, got a bonus point against the Sharks, a really, really good Sharks team. And then they beat the Stormers in Stellenbosch. So, it's hard to say that this team can't go back-to-back. I really think they can. They've got the tools and all ammunition to go back-to-back. And the other thing is why I also say that I fancy this team so early on in the competition is if you look at the players they got and look at a lot of Scottish players that they've got, and the main goal of the UK players and the Irish players this year individually is to get on that Lions door. So there's a few guys there who will be playing out of their skin right through a whole season, to try and get on that Lions door and trying to become a Lion. Because only come every 4 years or so. So yeah, for me, Glasgow, they've got a really good thing going there, and let's see how they go again with Franco Smith this year.
Fair enough. You mentioned a few key players. I think Sione Tuipulotu is amazing at 12. Looking at that game as well, Vickers, I'm not gonna call it your favorite team. I almost called them your favorite team, but you've told us many a times that the Stormers' attack shape is not really existent, as Jade said, and I think you've also said, and you has also alluded to this fact that they really enjoy relying on their individual brilliance. But once a team like Glasgow takes away those opportunities in terms of closing down the space, kicking into space, winning that territorial battle, winning those aerial contests as well. From what I've noticed or what I've picked up myself is that once you do those things well against the Stormers, the territorial battle, not giving the skillful or dangerous players enough space or room to exploit or razzle dazzle you into yeah, basically once you close that off, the Stormers don't really have an attack shape or game pattern that when I'm watching them, where I go, oh, I see what they're trying to do here. They're trying to do this, because it's usually like one phase, two phases, where they use their forward pack. For example, if you look at the carries over the weekend, most of the carries come from backline players versus the forwards. And for me, that's dangerous. That's dangerous territory. If you're forward pack, you've got a number of players that have been in the box setup. Some of them are Springboks. You've got some big names in that forward pack. But if your backline is the one that makes more carries, isn't that putting you on the back foot as a South African team who's supposed to be strong up front? But I mean, when you see the Stormers team, I mean, what do you make of it? Once again, I know this question has been coming up all the time, but from this past weekend, what did you see differently?
Yeah, I didn't see anything differently. I mean, like I've said, I think it's always been a question of what is their structure? What are they trying to do? Are they using the forwards to be dominant? Do they want to be a team that runs teams ragged by going wide, using their width? But we haven't seen that. I think the only thing that was better this weekend was that they had a 10 was marshalling things, and actually you could literally see he was literally marshalling things, where to go, when to take contact, what to do. And I think, look, if I look at the game and look at the Stormers, I'll I'll always say this. I think it's for me very hard to understand. You can't build a game plan of individuals, because when the individuals gets found out, what do you do then as a coach, and what do you do as a team? So it's almost like you need to build a structure where individuals fit into the structure. And if you don't have that, then you have to find the individuals that will fit in the structure. It's not about just signing anyone. If you look at Franco Smith, for example, we know Franco Smith did that with the Cheetahs. He signed players that he knew he wanted something from them. He moved to Italy. He got to Italy. He couldn't sign players because he's coaching the national team, and he decided to leave and go to Glasgow. And in Glasgow, he got there. He signed the players that he wanted, to influence, and to make the game plan work. And we've seen he's a championship team. So they so much just need to find that balance. I think they need to just understand the individuals can't be the base, can't be your foundation of the house. There needs to be something different between making that getting a structure where you have a foundation, and then your individuals can excel in it. I saw a couple of times, like even in the game that they played yesterday, is that whenever there's a kick, everyone gets excited, and that says something about that team. Everyone gets excited when there's a kick, when there's a kick back, because everyone knows what's coming. So that tells you something. That tells you that this team strives of obviously strives of the counterattack, and they want to get their individuals to strive in that counterattack, and the rest of the players must just follow. So I think they will have to obviously start looking at how things are now, because they're not really pretty sitting on a good position in the table. So I guess they will probably have to sit down and just and look at how they can change things, because that's the only way you can. It's not too deep in the season. It's still early. So you can still change things and have an influence to make the quarters.
Interesting. Jade?
Yeah, no, sorry, man. I just wanted to touch on, the biggest disappointment for the Stormers this season has been guys like, your fringe players who should be knocking down on the block door, knocking the block door down. And you're looking at the guy that I'm going to mention and single out, Warwick Galant, maybe. I mean, he's been on the fringes of the block team for how long now? And he's never really nailed down a position. And now you can really see why, he's got so much shortfalls in his games at the moment. I mean, he's not the player he was when he left here a few years ago. I think the Stormers have too many of those players at the moment, where they're on the fringes of being in the block team, but they're not taking the opportunity. They're not knocking down the door. They're not carrying the Stormers team when the other players, they box their superstars, are not doing it. So they need a few other guys to step up and to go back to basics. I still think this team lacks a lot of basics. Just go back to basics. Start to carry hard. Let your forwards make the hard yards. Carry hard. Get the back some space. Let them run from there. Not trying to let the backs take up the ball and the backs razzle-dazzle from everything. So that's what they need to do. In the next few games, do that. Get the foundation to work from, and then you'll see results will, they should start to come again.
Yeah, Vickers?
Yeah, just a quick question. Who are the ball carriers? Because we know Marabe. Marabe in the forwards is a ball carrier.
Yeah.
But give me someone else, guys. I'm ready.
Chickeling is a ball carrier. Ruben van Heerden should be a ball carrier. I mean, we're talking about people that are 6'2", 6'5".
No, but no, you talking about the body. I can buy myself a Vivo 1.1 engine. It's not gonna give me a 3-liter engine.
No, because
but what I'm saying is that you need to understand who are the ball carriers. We need to understand who are the ball carriers.
Okay, Gay is one.
Yeah. I said cancel him out. Because you already know his stats.
But I think, what's his name? Fenta, the hooker, is all. I saw him with a few carries. I'm assuming he's one of the highlighted players in terms of ball carrying. Dweber is a hooker.
Come on.
And that's cool. That's that. Ben Jason Dixon's not carrying like he should. They must even Ruas, another carry up there. Just look at it nicely. The props don't carry hard. I mean, Brock Harris.
And Daimani is away.
Yeah, Daimani is gone. So it's true what Vickers is onto something there.
Yeah, but Vickers, I like the way, I like the something you said earlier. I'm giving you names. JD Schikkeling. I'm giving you Ruben van Heerden. There's Jason Benson Dixon. Also, just these three names alone, right? I'm looking at it from a size perspective. And why wouldn't you want these three players to be part of your ball carrying platform or foundation? For example, on your attack shape, you want them to be in a pod, either the first pod of from the touch line, the closest pod to the breakdown. They set the pod up. Who do you want as a carrier? Because Keke can't be from one side of the field on the and the other side of the field at this point. But what is then your engine room doing? The lock forwards, the lock pairing, and your loose forwards. What are they doing in this whole period, in this whole situation, while we're trying to carry? Because if you look at the backline players, they've got double digits on carries. Forwards, I think there's only one with Hukeke, if not a single digit, in terms of ball carries. What are the other forwards doing?
You see, Scoop, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get to, is that as much as these guys have big bodies, but are they going to move people away? Are they going to move bodies away? So we're looking at that. For example, you take a guy like Pepsi Buthelezi. We know he's a ball carrier. And we know, yes, he gets found out sometimes. He's not that strong in contact. But at most of the time, he does get that 1 or 2 meters. So it's about time maybe we start looking at how they can start to bring in new players who can fit that role, because it's really not that difficult to find those kind of players in South Africa. We have them. We just need to they just need to sit down and say, okay, cool. Who's in the fringes in these teams? Look, we know the Cheetahs guys. Some of the guys in the Cheetahs, they quite good ball carriers. We have you have guys in Pumas who are actually quite good ball carriers. So go and look there and bring him in. Because at the end of the day, as we're saying, you need to make sure that your forwards, we start having dominant forwards so that you can have a platform to be able to play. Your backs, your flashy backs, your good looking backs will never be able to go forward if they don't have the shaving cream.
You know who doesn't need shaving cream? Is Jade and myself, because we haven't shaved in a very long time. Before we jump on to the next conversation, which is the Sharks, I just want to give you guys a note regarding obviously Avante Brandy. You guys can purchase Avante Brandy online. So you can visit www.avantebrandy.com. You can use the code Scoop Avante, SCOOPAVANTE. You can use the code Scoop Avante when you purchase online, and you can get all the discounts. Terms and conditions apply. Drink responsibly. Not for sale for the persons under the age of 18. Jade, we need to see your ID when you're purchasing at the store there in Bloemfontein. But nonetheless, it was a very good top conversation that we had regarding the Stormers, and obviously looking at things like ball carries, things like needing to play from a certain platform. But the Sharks, gentlemen, the Sharks, we've been crying, we've been moaning. They delivered at the biggest, not the biggest stage. I see that their Twitter handle has been very, very, very excited talking about champions, but it's EPCR champions. It's not URC champions. URC champions are Glasgow Warriors. Let's get that clear. But nonetheless, the Sharks last night played like a team possessed. They played like a championship team. Vuyo. We've seen Vickers Apelele Fasi at this point. He looks unstoppable from what I've watched, from what I've seen in the past 2 to 3 weeks, and obviously looking into the internationals. But the Sharks played with such pace, power, and they literally obliterated Munster from minute one. They look like a train, unstoppable train. Shosholoza train coming from Mbombela all the way to Durban. Munster did not have any answers in that game. Munster are a very good ruck team where they slow down opposition ball. They have players that lie down on the ground. You know, they like to disrupt a lot of play. But I think Plumtree, having selected Williams at 9 for that quick ball, quick pace, I mean, the breakdown at some point, I think that those first 5 minutes, at some point, I think the Sharks breakdown was like 1.5 to 2 seconds, and the ball was out. And also, Williams being that quick around the edges of the breakdown, also beneficial for the Sharks team in getting good go forward. But what did you see from the Sharks? What impressed you the most, Vickers?
Yeah, so I think it's what we discussed last week. The change in defense. I think, look, we have to admit the Springbok players in the Sharks team had the influence in that defense system, because now we're not only seeing Sharks defense, we're seeing a sort of like a Springbok blitz defense, and I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that of the players that they have in the team. I mean, Munster had 61% possession at some point, 63% territory at some point. That has to be massive, because that goes down to the defense. That goes down to the amount of entries they had in the 22 and the amount of times they didn't get points out of that. So we could literally look at it and say, flip it around and say Sharks were brilliant on defense and Munster was poor on attack. But, and then in saying that, how was Munster's defense? Grant Williams, Scoop, you're spot on. He kicked like a champion yesterday, because all his box kicks were excellent, perfect. And guess who was there waiting? The number 8 CI was there waiting to clean up the scraps and pass the ball wide. We even at some point saw Oxenchair make it like a 10-meter pass. So you can see that they literally went into that defense role. What are we going to do in the defense? We're going to rush. We're going to put them under pressure. When we get the ball back, We're gonna put it up with a bomb, and we're gonna try and contest with the ball. When we win the ball, let's get it wide. It's exactly how South Africa won 2019 World Cup. So I think for me, that's something that was that they've changed. They brought in this week that we've seen. Hopefully they won't lose it now. They would lose their box because it's something good. Their line speed was perfect. Their kick chase and kick gathering retain was perfect. So which is why they scored a lot of tries. And I think it's credit to the coaches for using that intel and using that those personnel that they have in their setup to be able to give them something better. If they can just maintain this, I think they will grow into the tournament, and I think they will get themselves into the right position of the table.
Fair enough. Jade, things went
Yeah,
up.
no,
Yeah. Oh
no, like Will said there, he's spot on. You know, the Sharks started, they did everything with intensity. And, you know, you get it a lot in these franchise competitions or these franchise teams where you have star-studded players where your box or your international players, you know, dropping down, or not dropping down, but when they do play for that team specifically, you know, they don't bring the same intensity that they bring out when they play for the national team. We've seen it a lot. I mean, we can name a few teams, you know, over the years, and especially this time of the year as well, you know, where they are in a break, where, you know, some guys think, or some international players feel that, you know, they're not going to give, you know, they're scared for injuries because they're still thinking of Idevieto, etc. But this wasn't the case for the likes of Itzebeth, you know, Ox, Sia, Fassi. I mean, there was in the 5th minute or so, it was Grant Williams, so they kicked the Gary Owen and he kicked the box kick, and was chasing with Sia, Ox, Itzebeth, all there competing and contesting for the ball. That's a platform, you know, that the other guys want to see at the Sharks. That is, guys want to see this. They want to see the star players giving everything for that club or for that franchise. So no, I mean that's where it started. And for me now, the important thing is the intensity, the professionalism, the way they train, the way they carry themselves on the field, the way they conduct themselves defensively, their line speed. How much of that do they pass on to the guys that's going to play, you know, when they're not there, you know, the fringe players? How much can they learn from Itzebeth, and how much Itzebeth done that, and how much, you know, Sia and those guys did it? So that's important for the Sharks, you know, so they can get the same intensity when they play the next game or so, you know, so that's important. But I like what Plumtree is doing at the moment. You know, I've been critical about him, been saying, yeah, and what is his game plan or so, but if you can see, you know, he is really trying to get the ball out wide, and that's obviously the DNA that he does have from New Zealand.
no, 100%. I think that was my question that I was going to ask you regarding. Obviously, the Sharks look very settled. Obviously, the guys that coming from the Springbok camp and everything understand each other, and obviously, it makes it look like a seamless process. But we have to give credit also to the coaches in handling those sort of situations and making sure the team is still playing as a unit. Because sometimes we can understand things like big egos. We maybe take those things for granted when you go into a coaching setup, because at some point, as a coach, you still need to focus on getting those players down to earth, because I know you probably know a lot about this as well. You need to still get those players down to earth. You need to still get those players in the right frame of mind to also produce for the Sharks as well as they produce for the Springboks as well. Because looking at Jade, Jordan Hendricks at 10 and Williams at 9, what do you make of the combination? And obviously, Hendricks getting I think it's a 7 out of 7 in terms of the kicks that he got. But like, what do you make of his performance yesterday?
Yeah, I think the combo was pretty good. I think, look, it's something refreshing to see. Like I said, I think 2 weeks ago when I said to the space, maybe we need to see Jordan. What position are they getting him on? And it was good to see him at 10. And I think he controlled things quite well. I wouldn't say that he had shortfalls. I think he had a decent game. I would like to see him even more there, play more, because the more he can play, the more confidence he's gonna get. So the combination was pretty solid. Obviously, with if having his brother in the 9 position would probably even better, because Blood, you know how these guys have grown up together. They know each other's antics, so maybe that would be a better combination. But I like what we came up with in terms of if you look at the Rugby Championship team, when we called Grant Williams, we thought he was the best 9 of the competition. And I think if you look at what happened yesterday and his performance yesterday, I think we were spot on. I think the guy is growing so much in that position. And I think we can only see good things happen as long as obviously he's fit and good to go.
No, fair enough, fair enough. Jade, going to Ireland, Leinster, your favorite Leos, the Lions, coming up short, but resilient performance from the Lions. Although I will say Leinster were too strong. I mean, majority of that game was played in the Lions half, but obviously great defense, great resilience. Like I said, good effort by the Lions, but they didn't put themselves in good attacking positions to actually make the game more of a contest, because the whole game we're practically watching them exit more than having to see them play their natural game. Obviously, you have to adjust a few things when you play away from home, understandably, but sometimes I don't think they probably gave themselves enough opportunities to put Leinster under pressure. Maybe in the first half, yes, but second half was pretty one-sided, and eventually, obviously, the Leicester team won it by 20. I think it's 24 points to 6, if I'm not mistaken. But it was a very close game, very contested game until the last 10 to 12 minutes of that second half. But what do you make of the Lions currently? It was a top of the table clash and everything, but looking at the Lions, I mean, how much they've developed over the past 3 to 4 years.
No, look, the Lions kept Leinster yesterday at arm's length, throughout the whole game, but obviously they didn't have that extra quality or so to to get that killer punch or so, and Leicester didn't run away with the game. So I think, Cash will be satisfied, with the performance. Obviously, it wasn't a hiding. Leinster didn't give it all their own way. They competed with them, at certain aspects, like at, they've got a few lineup steals, scrum time, they were very competitive. So, for in that aspect, I think the Lions coaching staff will be fairly happy. In terms of their creativity, that's a big concern for them, because if you look at the way the Lions play, they've always, had this razzle-dazzle spark about them. They couldn't get that yesterday against Leinster. I mean, and Leinster is a well-coached, brilliant defensive team, arguably one of the best in the world, So for me, I think that's a big area of concern that, that Cash will look at it, take away from the game. Obviously, the performance, you can't. They were brave, they stood there, like I said, they kept Leinster at arm's length the whole game. Leinster didn't run away with the game. But there was positives, but I mean, there was a few negatives as well, that they need to go back and work on. And they needed to see where they are in the log and, take it from there. Like we said last week, take it game for game. And I mean, there was more, I wouldn't say there was more positives and negatives yesterday, but I mean, there was a lot to take out of the store. I don't know if they're done yet. I think they've got one more game, but yeah, surely next week they can target the win after their performance yesterday against Leinster.
Yeah, fair enough. Because looking at that Leinster team, though, as well, I mean, were you highly impressed by them, or maybe were they showing signs that could be concerning? Because we look at the Lions, they're also number 2 on the log. They've been good at home, but in leaps and bounds in terms of performance overseas. But when you look at the Leinster team, I mean, were you expecting such a highly competitive game in the first 40? And obviously the last, 25 to 30 minutes of the game, still contested, still highly contestable game. But obviously the last 15 or last 12 to 10 minutes, the Leinster then got a bit of momentum and scored about, I think, 2 or 3 tries in that space. But regardless of that, when you look at Leinster, are they performing at their peak, or are there concerning moments from you looking at the caliber of players they have? Obviously, we looked at the Sharks with all their Springboks back. Looking at Leinster, they had all their Irish players and a Springbok in their camp. When you compare the two teams in terms of personnel and how the one performed versus the other, are you happy with what Leinster had to show yesterday?
Look, I think this happened a couple of weeks ago. I think we discussed it when I think the Bulls they went into that game without, obviously, I think it was the Scarlets. They didn't think it was going to be that hard. And I think that was the same mindset that Leinster went in with this game. Yes, they had selected a couple of Irish players in their team, but they were still missing the key numbers. I think with the Ringrose, Sheenan, you got maybe one Goodison Park. I think he was also missing. So I think they didn't go in with the mindset that it was going to be that hard, especially having pumped Munster a couple of weeks ago in the same stadium. So for me, I think the most important was what I saw from the Lions. Look, guys, if what the Lions are doing, what the Lions are starting to cook in Joburg is actually coming together. Those rucks were disruptive. Those rucks were a mess, and I think that's part of the reason why Leinster struggled in that game, because they didn't expect so many turnovers against them within that in that game, and I mean those rucks were disruptive till the last minute, if I can call it like that. And I think that's where coaches maybe are starting to understand that you cannot let a team just have a free reign in the rucks and get quick rucks, because you never get time to set. So the more you can disrupt the rucks, the more you can, so your conditioning can go towards the tackle roll away, so that we can mess up the ruck, or don't go down, stay on your feet so we can mess up the ruck. The more times you can do that, just to make sure that the team is not getting the quick ball, is very important, especially at that level. So I think that's what the Lions have changed, and obviously using their star players now to do the counter attack, to also have using their ball carriers to do the running and gaining those meters. I felt they didn't use them enough yesterday. Obviously, they didn't have enough ball to use them, but the times that they had the ball, they didn't use them. And I think, look, if I'm being honest, I like what the Lions are bringing. If now we can talk about if they could start to sign the hybrid players, your top players within their team, I think we'll definitely see something different. We'll see the old days of Andre Pretorius back in Joburg.
Jeepers, what a very long time that was. Guys, still to come is the squads, Springbok squad. We're going to be chatting about NPC final. We're going to be chatting about, and then the Irish team or squad that's been announced, and the Scottish team that's been announced. But before we go there, Hugh Griffin has been celebrating all weekend. Welsh teams are doing well in URC 2024-2025. The gardener, the statsman, talk to us. Your feelings over there in Wales regarding, obviously, the weekend's results. And yeah, how are things looking? It's looking promising for the national team, quote unquote, going into the end of the year tour. Teams are competitive. But what did you make of this weekend? Scarlets at the top or at the wheel?
Yeah, afternoon, everybody. So kind of, I think the two expected wins of the weekend for the Welsh teams would be Scarlets beating Zebra. I watched that game. Zebra were extremely poor. One of the worst performances from a visiting scene I've seen at the park in a very long time. They really didn't know what on earth they were trying to do in attack. The Scarlets defence didn't have to do anything. Scarlets, I think, that emotionally, after beating the Bulls last week, struggled to get up for this. That's what Gareth Davis said in the post-match interview. He said after the big result that we had, training didn't feel like it was at the necessary standard for him for the Zebra game, because the players just weren't excited. But we got the job done, got the 4-point bonus points, some really nice tries as well. So just tick it off and move on for me, have a bit of a break now. The result for the Ospreys over Edinburgh, also expected. Ospreys brought back all of their internationals into their team. Edinburgh have been terrible away from home for well over a year now. Really, really poor record on the road. And I expected Ospreys to win that. I didn't get to see much of the game, but I'm told by people who did watch it that it was a very poor level of game. Edinburgh, a lot of their fans are very unhappy with Sean Everett. A lot of people want to see him leave. He's not been able to implement a coherent attack while he's been there. So, and, you can talk about the defence is not so bad, but the Ospreys attack is by far their worst feature. And to say that you defended well against the Ospreys isn't really saying much, to be honest. The one that surprised was Cardiff's victory over Ulster. Ulster blowing a 19 points to 0 lead at half-time to lose the game. Pretty unforgivable. In the first half, Cardiff's defence was just nowhere, just anonymous players not taking responsibility.
Oh, I think there's load shedding in the UK. Naming their squads over this past week, looking at the international scene, that is. Obviously, the Scottish side has got a new captain now, Sione Tuipolotu, and we see that Kalian, is it Kalian or Kilian?
Kalen.
How do you pronounce that? Kalen. That too. Caelan Doris will be the Irish captain going into this autumn series. I mean, Vuyo, looking at Tuipolotu and what he's done with the Warriors, being a champion from last season at the URC, and looking at his form currently, Gregor Townsend talks about him being a leader on the field. He leads from the front. And obviously the Scottish team now having this new captain who leads from the front. Do you think it'll make a difference into the Scottish setup? Because we've seen the influence he's had with the Warriors. Does it take that and moves it into the Scottish setup and obviously try and, I don't know, maybe upset the Springboks going into this end of the year tour?
Yeah, I think Scoop, you have to ask yourself, the question is, why would he do it? Why would he change his captain now? Okay. The question is, they've just come off obviously a World Cup cycle. They will then start to obviously build for the next one. So now maybe it's a good time. And I think with the Tuipolotu, as we've seen, he's a big leader on the field. He commands the presence. He's almost like similar to Bondi Aki, but obviously with different attributes. And I think what I've seen from him, from how Franco Smith have used him, is probably the one of those conversations where coaches are asking. The two coaches, the national team coach and the club coach, were probably having a conversation about it in terms of why are you picking him as captain? How are you using him in your system? And that's the most important thing. And obviously with Gregor Townsend, he would have seen that they did have shortfalls in their leadership, maybe when they've lost big games. And maybe to counter that, to having a guy like Tuipolotu on that captaincy, it's going to take away that, or the other guys will just have to play rugby. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to think Gregor Townsend loves his backline the captains, because we've seen it from Stuart Hogg, and now he's got another 12 as a captain. So yeah, I think probably pointed for his leadership, especially on the field, leading from the front.
No, fair enough. Hugh?
Yeah, so I've got a theory as to why Tuipolotu's been made captain. It's very cynical, I'm afraid, but there was rumours 2 weeks ago of Tuipolotu going to a club in England, or maybe to a club in France, a lot of people sniffing around. And then a week later, it's announced that he's both staying at Glasgow and he's been made Scotland captain. So those two things happened at the same time. That's all I'm saying.
And his brothers in the squad.
All right, no, fair enough. I'll take that one. But Jade, looking at the Irish new captain as well, Ndabe Zindo calls him Obstruction Doris. What do you make of the new captain that's been selected for the Irish squad going into the end of the year tour?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, I have no problem with Doris being captain. I mean, he's Glencoe's captain and he's a very, very good leader, world-class player as well. My question is, why didn't he just do it last year, when Sexton retired? I mean, he wasted this whole year with Peter O'Malley, and then he gave him the leadership for the year. And then now later on, he's made Doris his captain. So I think it's just strange that he didn't just do it last year and just make Doris captain immediately after Sexton, because you knew Peter O'Malley wouldn't be that long playing for Ireland. So yeah, but I have no problem with him. He's a workhorse, he's a world-class player, good leader. So yeah, no problem with him.
Vickers?
Wasn't the coach Farrell then? Because they have a new coach now, isn't it?
No, the new coach only starts on the 1st of December. So after the autumn series. At this point, it's still Farrell to take them into the autumn series, and then once this is done, then the other guy will start from July. He's a caretaker coach for the rest of 7 months of 2025, basically. But looking at now the injuries that have come up for the Springboks, Damian Willemse, we understand now he copped an injury over the weekend, so he won't be traveling. Cameron Hannekom, Hugh, how happy are you that Hannekom won't be playing for Wales going forward?
I'm not happy. Obviously, I think he probably starts for Wales. So, yeah, I think if he was going to play for Wales, he would have done already. I'm sure Gatland will have called him on the phone about a year ago, if not more, to check on him, and he's obviously said, "No, I'm going to wait for the Springboks," and now he's got it. I'm not sure when he'll play. I'm not sure what the Springboks' easiest test on tour is. Probably Wales. So yeah, Razzie doesn't like getting he doesn't like getting in guys who haven't been in the system that much. I don't know what Cameron's history with the under-20s or whatever is, but he doesn't. Razzie always talks about people who've been in the system for a long time. So maybe that's what's kept Cameron out so far. I don't know, but yeah, like I say, I can't see you can get tons of game time based on who's ahead of him, but we'll see.
No, fair. Vickers, what do you make of a backline player getting injured and then we get a forward to replace him in Cameron Hannekom in this situation?
No, there's nothing to read to it. We saw it in the World Cup. Michael Marks got injured and Pollard came in. So there's nothing to read to read about it. It's just, I think it's just a matter of looking at what the squad needs, looking at what, obviously, there's always a potential of giving players the experience and making sure that you growing your depth with the culture, with who's in the team. So I think this is probably one of those where probably been brought in just to see how he's going to fit in with the team and how he's going to fit in with the culture. And best be for sure, if it does happen that he does get a cap, it will be good for South Africa because, again, you're growing the depth within the squad.
I think Razzie will be happy that Willemse is injured, not because he doesn't like Willemse, it just means that he doesn't have to make a difficult decision in selection because he's already got Fuzzy and Villiers Leroux on tour. So that was already a headache of when he was going to actually play Willemse. So now he doesn't have to worry about that problem.
Jade, I was going to ask you this question, actually. Seeing that Fussy is having a stormer, excuse the pun, a stormer of a season, and Willemse hasn't really had a lot of mileage in terms of game time. Do you think Willemse could have walked into the starting lineup, or do you think Fussy would have still started and then Willemse off the bench?
Joe, who is currently, or maybe Will Jordan, a bit the number 15 at the moment in World Rugby?
Apelele Fuss.
Better than Apelele Fuss. Better than Apelele Fuss at the moment. Or maybe just Will Jordan. Maybe just Will Jordan. Maybe he's one. But I mean, between the two of them, who's better? Who's better than Apelele Fuss at the moment?
Israel Folau.
So there's no answer. No way. Apelele Fassi is turning into being in a league of his own, you know. I said last week he says Israel Folau and Israel Dad qualities I'm seeing in him. So yeah, no ways he's turning out to be world class at the moment. Willemse has to play well, good rugby. He has to, really outplay Fassi to get number 15 jumper back.
All right, fair enough. Hugh, last one. Rassie sees this tour as one of the tours where he can get 3-0. Whitewash. Springboks are going for 3-0. Is it possible against England, against Scotland, against Wales?
Definitely against Wales. Definitely against Scotland. England, Twickenham factor is massive. So I saw someone worked out that the difference between playing England at Twickenham and away from Twickenham is that at Twickenham they basically have a 12-point head start, because that's the difference for them. You're going to see some very iffy referee decisions go in England's favour. You're going to see players who normally don't look very good suddenly look like world beaters. So England's the tough one. Are the Springboks better than England? Yes, but Twickenham factor is a real thing. So that's the hard one.
Fair enough. Vickers, do you see a 3-0?
Yeah, definitely. I say 3-0. Definitely. I'm going for 3-0. I don't want to see anything about what England is going to bring, because I do believe especially after losing Ben Earl, I think we still got much more power.
All right. No, fair enough. Now, jumping on to Hugh's favorite coaching. Hugh's favorite coach, but one of his teams that he's fond of, but not over Fiji, Japan. Jade, the All Blacks, 60-point against Japan over the weekend. Are you happy? Did you see what you needed to see? Billy Proctor better than Rico Ioane. Sam Cane. I mean, he wasn't really strong in in those loose plays, defensively especially. I don't know what's wrong with Sam Cane. But anyway, are you happy overall with the performance? And what can we look forward to this coming weekend against England?
There's still a lot of work to be done. The game was very scrappy. I think there's a lot of guys there that you got an idea of them, they really didn't take a chance. I think, maybe the only one in the fringes would have been Benny Fino. I think he had a good game, and then obviously Patrick Tupelotto had a good game as well. But I mean, there's a few guys there that never put their hand up yesterday. I mean, I expected a little bit more from Billy Proctor. Mark Leah defensively again being caught out. I mean, Sebo Reese as well. I think it was very, very scrappy, and I think Japan was just, I don't know what to make about them at the moment. I know I'll give this to you because you've been following them the whole time. But I mean, Japan is not what they were a few years ago. I don't think Reise will be happy with their performance. I don't think the players will be happy with their performance. Positives was maybe, a guy like Cam Boycott coming back from injury. And then obviously, I mean, the talented Ruben Love giving a debut, and Peter Laka as well. But other than that, I mean, it was a overall scrappy performance from the All Blacks. I don't think of the guys that didn't play the weekend, I don't think any of their positions really under threat. Maybe Ethan de Groot, maybe he's the only one. But other than that, I think, Ryzen knows he's starting 15 next week against England. I don't think there was somebody that was out of that for starting 15 that played himself into that starting 15.
Yeah. Hugh, your favorite team, Japan, obviously 60,000 people in the crowd, but a lot of Japanese supporters on the socials not very pleased with the gap or the score line over the weekend. Seeing that, I think in 2022 or in 2022, we saw a much closer fixture or an encounter between New Zealand and Japan. I mean, the score was 38-31 last time they played. Obviously, Ian Foster was the coach at that time. But now we're seeing a much bigger deficit regarding the score line. And looking at the coaching staff, what do you make of all these attributes or things that basically are coming under scrutiny on the socials at this point in time?
Yeah, I definitely think that Japan deserve more scrutiny than a lot of people are giving them. You have to remember that Japan are the richest country in rugby aside from the USA, and we know the USA are much further down. Japan were beating tier 1 nations 5 years ago. Now they're not even close, and the fact is they're getting further away. Eddie Jones has gone for a hard reset with his squad selection, and it's not paying off. And, we spoke about it, Scoop, in the group chat of what is his reward for doing what he's doing. And is it a World Cup round of 16? A World Cup quarterfinal? Really? Is that the reward for going through what they're going through right now? People have been talking about Japan League One, and people are saying, oh, this shows the Japan League One isn't that strong. I'm like, guys, Adi Surveyor, Damien de Allende, Jesse Creel, Cheslin Colby, Richie Mwanga, Bowden Barrett, Aaron Smith, all these players play in that league. So these Japanese players, they train against and they play against these top 2 team players every single week for their entire domestic season. But they're coming out in the colours of the Japan national team, and they're looking like they've never played at this level before. They're looking like they don't know what to expect. I mean, that's not New Zealand's best team by any stretch of the imagination, not even close. And Japan just completely unable to compete. You can talk about the physicality. The physicality becomes a problem if you're actually making tackles, right? Like Japan weren't making tackles. Naikabula, he's an experienced player. He's been around the block, falling off tackles. Wonga, the Fijian second row, he's not a small guy. Physicality is not his problem. Falling off All Blacks, like completely clutching thin air. So defense under Eddie Jones, this iteration of Eddie Jones's Japan, has been a problem all year. Guys, this was Eddie Jones's 10th game in charge of Japan since he's come back. 10th game this year Eddie Jones has had with these Japanese players. And in defence, they just have they're nowhere near it. Their attitude and their desire in defence is just not there. Naikabula missed 5 tackles. Like I said, Wanga missed 3. So it's really disappointing. And I do think, like I said, Japan have had loads of opportunities. Okay, this is, like I said, their 10th game. 9 of those games have been at home. They've played the All Blacks, they've played Fiji, they've played England, they've played Italy, they've played Georgia. They're going to play more Tier 1 nations. They're not lacking in opportunity. They're not lacking in money. They're not lacking in coaching. Look at the coaches in Japanese League One. Look at the coaches. They've got Dave Rennie, Ian Foster, Steve Hansen in that league. And they're not getting closer. In fact, they're getting further away from these top nations under Eddie Jones. We need to stop looking at Japan as a plucky Tier 2 nation. They're not a Tier 2 nation. They've got everything that they could want. And the fact is that their performances are going backwards. Typical Eddie Jones, they score all their points in the first 20 minutes and then fall away badly. I said that they would fall away in the second half. Turned out they fell away in the second quarter. They just weren't able to compete at that level. So I think we need to start asking more questions about Japan, because I'm not seeing the excuses personally.
Vickers, you wanted to chime in there?
No, I wanted to comment on what Hugh said, because if you remember, Hugh made a comment last week. I think he said something about fitness. He said something about the conditioning that you have to go through to play that fast rugby. And to be honest, they are playing fast. They're playing extremely fast. But then it boils down to one thing now, is that what energy do you have for defense? So I think what I've noticed is that all the players get excited and they all get upbeat when they have ball in hand and when they're attacking. The moment they're defending, they sort of lose the motivation. So it's almost, the question now is almost like I would want to ask is, how many defense sessions have they done since they've started? Obviously, getting a defense structure is easy to just tell players, okay, this is where you go, this is where you go. And then after that, how many defense sessions have they actually spent? And how many sessions have they spent in what kind of tackle technique are they wanting? What kind of tackles do they want to make? So that boils down to that. And obviously, if you want to spend so much time attacking the way that they do, for me, it tells me that you need to spend a lot of time on the field with that. And I feel that's where the biggest problem is. They spent a lot of time attacking, because when they have ball in hand, they were trying to run the ball from their 22. If you're going to play a team like even New Zealand, Box, even Australia, you try to run the ball from your 22. By the time you reach the 10-meter, you're already exhausted. Then you're going to kick the ball. Then what are you going to do? What energy is left for defense? So that's why they always said, people always said, there needs to be a balance between attack. You know the right times to attack. You must know the right times to kick. And I think that's where they're lacking the mix at the moment. They just attacking, hoping to break the line. And if they don't break the line, the playmakers call the ball and they kick. And then after that, when they kick, there's no defense shape to go to. So there's a massive problem that they need to sort out. And unfortunately, that all boils down to the coaches. Do they see the same problem, or are they happy with what they see?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Yeah, unfortunately, guys, we've come to the end of this particular segment. But before we leave, the autumn series kicks off next weekend. Jade, England versus New Zealand. You are looking forward to it with a glass of Avante. 2, who do you see winning in that particular fixture?
You know what? I don't know, because England pushed New Zealand really, really close. And I want to say that the All Blacks has improved, but I mean, England's also improved over the past year. So it's going to be close. I think by a score, I'll give it to the All Blacks, just because, I mean, they've been in camp for longer, and I mean, they've had a hit before they played England before this game. But yeah, it's going to be very, very close. I think New Zealand, by a score.
And then we've got Scotland and Fiji. Jade, same one. Who do you see winning that one?
I think Scotland will have too much for Fiji. I think Scotland should have too much for Fiji.
Interesting. Vickers, England, New Zealand, with a glass of Avante?
With a glass of Avante, I'm probably going to go England. I know you guys won't like me for this, but I honestly think after the results we've seen in June, England in Twickenham at home with the plus 12 points. You're starting with 12 points. Yep. I think, look, it's going to be close. It's going to go down to the wire, but I think England might pip New Zealand on this one.
Come on, the All Blacks. Hugh Griffin, the gardener. Talk to me. England versus New Zealand.
I think that England are going to look a step off it. I think they're going to look quite rusty. The Premiership is a long way down from Test level, and I think a lot of their players are going to look like they're surprised by the level. I agree with Jade that New Zealand's, they're coming off a run of fixtures. They've been in camp for longer. They're basically a club side by the time they come up to us in the Northern Hemisphere. So I think England will make a wrestle of it for half the game, but I think early on that's where New Zealand should be targeting, because England might come out fired up in the first 5 minutes, but I don't think that they're going to have the cohesion. I don't think they're going to have the match readiness to cope with the All Blacks early on. So I think the All Blacks should be targeting to get 2 scores up in the first half and then manage the game from there.
And then
not if D-Mac starts at 10.
Take it easy, Vickers. Take it easy.
Gents, unfortunately, I have to run. I'll give you a shot, obviously, later. But thank you very much, guys, for having me, and I'll chat to you soon.
Cheers, Vickers. Hugh, your last one, Scotland and Fiji.
Yeah, I think Fiji will push them closer than a lot of people think. They've obviously played with the Drua side in the Pacific Nations Cup, and now they're adding back in their European players. So I think they might look a little bit disjointed at times, but I think they'll have a good hit out. I don't think they're going to let in many points by Scotland, but I can see it being something like a 28-12 kind of game. So I think Scotland will get the win, but I think it will be a scrappy one. I think there'll be a lot of errors, and I think Fiji will look a lot better the week after.
Fair enough. Yes, guys, we've come to the end of this particular segment. This will be the end of this particular show as well. Remember when what we said about Avanti Brandy? You can buy online, www.avantibrandy.com. Use the code SCOOPAVANTI when you're making a purchase. It's not for sale for persons under the age of 18, and drink responsibly. Well done to the Wellington Lions for winning the NPC in New Zealand. What a grueler of a match that was. If you haven't seen it, you can find a few highlights on YouTube as well. But yeah, nonetheless, thank you, Jade. Thank you, Vickers, who's jumped off just now. Thank you, Hugh. And thank you to all the listeners, guys. See you next week. International season kicks off. It's going to be hot. It's going to be heated. It's going to be a lot of analysis, a lot of breakdown. And yeah, looking forward to it, and looking forward to many more conversations in the future as well. Thank you, guys. Have a wonderful Sunday. Have a wonderful week ahead. This is the Rugby Scoop. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.